most famous painting in the world has something underneath it. Not paint, not canvas, another portrait, a completely different person, hidden deliberately. Scientists confirmed it in 2015 using infrared imaging. The Louvre has known ever since. Nobody has been allowed to remove the top layer to find out who it is. Think about that for a second. Leonardo da Vinci, the greatest painter who ever lived, finished a portrait, looked at it, and painted over it. On purpose. He did not destroy it. He did not throw it away. He buried it under the Mona Lisa and kept the painting with him until the day he died. Never sold it, never gave it away, kept it at his bedside in France in 1519. What was underneath that he needed to hide but could not bring himself to destroy? That is the question nobody has thought to ask, because the answer requires knowing what Leonardo encountered in Milan in 1490, and that is not in any history book. By 1490, Leonardo da Vinci was the most interesting man in Italy. And Italy in 1490 was full of interesting men. He was 38. He had already painted the Annunciation. He had already drawn the Vitruvian Man. He was in the middle of painting the Last Supper. He was designing flying machines, military weapons, hydraulic systems, and anatomical diagrams simultaneously, constantly, obsessively. He was also doing something the church officially forbade. At night, he was dissecting human bodies. Not for shock value, not for money, because Leonardo had a problem. He could not paint what he did not fully understand. And he did not understand the human body until he had taken it apart himself. He had done this dozens of times. He knew more about human anatomy than any physician alive. His notebooks from this period contain drawings so accurate that surgeons were still referencing them 400 years later. He was the one man in the world who looked at things more carefully than anyone else, which is exactly why he was the wrong man to encounter what showed up in Milan in the winter of 1490. He had no name that meant anything by 1490. He had used hundreds of them. He had been in Milan before, Rome, Constantinople, Athens. He moved when the question started. 3,000 years of surviving on blood. Not enjoying it. Surviving it. It was maintenance. He was not searching for anything in Milan. But he had a problem. One he had never solved. He had no reflection. No mirror showed him anything. No water. No polished metal. For 3,000 years, he had seen his own face exactly 0 times. He had seen fear on other people's faces when they looked at him. He had seen recognition. He had seen the moment someone understood what they were dealing with. But he had never seen what they saw. Most of the time that didn't matter. But 3,000 years is a long time to exist without knowing what you look like. And in Milan in 1490, there was one man who could fix that. Leonardo was working late. He almost always worked late. He had a habit of staring at a painting for 4 hours without touching it, then making one brushstroke and leaving. His assistants thought he was strange. They were right. He was alone in the studio when the visitor arrived. Most people flinched. They felt something wrong before they could explain what it was. The air changed. The instinct to leave arrived before the thought did. Leonardo did not flinch. He looked the way he looked at everything, and with complete attention. Tilted his head slightly, said nothing for a moment, then, "Sit down, the light is better by the window." That was Leonardo, not afraid, just observing, already calculating. The offer was simple. Paint a portrait, private. Not for display, not for any court or patron. One portrait for the subject only. Payment would be access. fresh bodies for the anatomy rooms. No church interference, no questions from authorities. Whatever Leonardo needed, quietly arranged. Leonardo thought about it for exactly one night. He said yes. The sitting started the following week. Leonardo worked the way he always worked, slowly, with extreme attention. He spent more time looking than painting. Hundreds of preparatory studies. Hands, eyes, the angle of the jaw, the fall of light across the cheekbone. And he started noticing things. The proportions were wrong. Not badly wrong, perfectly wrong. The kind of perfect that doesn't exist in a living body because living bodies age. Joints wear, muscles shift, faces change. This face had not changed. It was the way a body looks at its absolute physical peak, and had simply stayed there. The eyes were wrong too, not in shape, in behavior. When light hit them, they did not reflect the way human eyes do. No catchlight, no tiny white point of reflection that appears in every portrait subject Leonardo had ever painted. He had painted hundreds of eyes. He had never seen this before. He wrote it down, in mirror script, in a notebook he kept separate from everything else. He measured the proportions, exact in a way no living body maintained. He included those measurements in another notebook. Scholars would later find them and assume they were theoretical ideals. They were not theoretical. They were observed. The subject never moved unless asked, never fidgeted, never looked away. Sessions lasted 4 hours. Most portrait subjects were restless within 30 minutes. This one simply sat, watched Leonardo paint, and waited. While all of this was happening, Leonardo was finishing the Last Supper. Art historians have spent 500 years looking for hidden messages in that painting. Hand positions, figure groupings, sacred geometry, musical notes encoded in the composition. Most of those theories are wrong. But here's something that is not a theory. Leonardo painted the Last Supper during exactly the same months as the private sittings. Same studio, same mind. The painting is about one thing: a table of men, one of whom already knows what is coming, has already made his decision, is sitting completely calm while everyone around him is asking questions. Leonardo spent that entire year thinking about what it looks like when something impossible sits in front of you and appears completely calm. You can see it in the painting. The notebooks are scattered across the world. Windsor Castle, the Vatican, the Codex Leicester. Bill Gates bought that one in 1994 for $30 million. But there are pages that don't fit, anatomical drawings of proportions that don't match any human subject, observations about eyes that suggest Leonardo was genuinely confused by what he was seeing, figure studies that don't correspond to any known painting or commission. Nobody has been able to identify the subject. Leonardo did not draw theories. He drew what he saw. Those pages are publicly available. You can look at them today. The portrait was finished. Leonardo had painted kings, dukes, saints. He knew what a great portrait looked like. He knew when he had one. This was something else. He had done what he always did, looked past the surface and painted what was underneath. And in this case, what was underneath was not something a canvas should contain. The subject came to see it. This was the only moment. Standing in a studio in Milan, looking at his own face for the first time in perhaps 1,000 years. We do not know what he said. We only know what he asked for next: paint over it. Months later, a Florentine merchant commissioned a portrait of his wife. Leonardo took the commission. He painted her face directly onto the canvas that already held another portrait beneath it. We call it the Mona Lisa. Leonardo never sold it, never gave it away, kept it for the last 25 years of his life. That is not the behavior of a man who finished with a painting. The Mona Lisa is now in the Louvre, behind bulletproof glass. 6 million people see it every year. They wonder about the smile. They look for hidden codes. Nobody asks about the portrait underneath. The Louvre knows it is there. They have the imaging results. They have not removed the top layer. They say it is to protect the painting. That is a reasonable explanation. It is also a very convenient one. Some things get hidden for a reason, and some reasons are still standing.